Hi, this is the one and only Blackie Lawless of W.A.S.P, and you're listening to the Squatter Spot on TBFM Online.
Okay, this is DJ Squatter on the Squatter Spot, TBFM Online. And next up, we're having a chat with the man, the legend, Mr. Blackie Lawless. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, excellent. It's been nearly 6 years since your last album, Babylon, but now Golgotha is finally set to be released. Napalm Records on October the 2nd. It's been a long time coming. So you must be really delighted to finally get it out there.
I'm glad it's finished.
Yeah.
This was climbing a hill. It was like pulling a donkey uphill that didn't want to go.
Yeah, you had a few little delays in the way, so including breaking your leg.
Yeah, a few little hiccups.
Yeah. Well, you're breaking your leg way before Dave Grohl made it really popular.
Oh man, I'm telling you, it was not good. I'm now the proud owner of an 18-inch titanium rod.
Wow.
That will be with me for the duration.
So you're going to have some spinal tap moments going through the airports then? Yeah,
probably. It's like I said, I was in surgery 6 hours. It was pretty ugly.
Oh, that sounds nice. Nice. All healed now, though. Do you find it restricts you on stage? You still run around as much?
Well, I'm still a little restricted on stage because the bone's healed fine, but getting the strength back in the muscle because let's be honest, it took about 9 months for the bone to really heal right, and then the muscle just deteriorates around it, and it just takes a long time to get the muscle back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, glad you're back on your feet now, anyway. So
literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Okay. So the album's out soon. I have to say, I'm definitely more of an old school guy in general because I had a bit of a break from metal for a few years. I started going to gigs around about 1989.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So when I was sort of like 16 to around sort of 1992, 93. So for me, the W.A.S.P album is the Headless Children. That is my W.A.S.P album, and Sacred Reich, it's the American Way, and all the sort of old school sort of stuff. I've seen some comments from you that the new album you'd say fits in quite well with the last two that you've done. Does it appeal to both the old and the new fans, if you like?
I'm not saying this just because you said it. When we were mixing the album, when you're recording it, you're doing individual tracks, so you don't see it as a whole. But when we were mixing, you then start to see the thing really come together. We were talking amongst ourselves, and we were amazed. Yes, there are 80s elements in it, but there's more 70s and 60s than there are 80s.
Yeah, I thought the same.
It's a unique little hybrid. And the thing that we spotted, we said, this is probably more akin to Headless. Not sonically. It sounds sonically more like the last two records.
Yeah.
But from a collection, you're looking at a collection of ideas that span a career.
Yeah.
But the influences, that DNA that spread on you when you're a kid, growing up listening to all that stuff that you listen to, I definitely hear those influences on this record.
Yeah. It sounds like a W.A.S.P album. It has got that sound to it. It's very clearly a W.A.S.P album. So I think Shotgun, is probably my favourite at the moment. I've been listening to this week.
Really?
It seems to be a bit of a follow-on from Blind in Texas. I get a little bit to almost like it's a sequel to that for me.
Could be.
So you've got 10 UK dates coming up here in September on the Bloody Road to Golgotha tour. Do you like performing here in the UK? Do you find major differences between British and American audiences, or maybe even between European audiences, maybe?
Well, that place is always going to have a special place for me because, we were based in the UK for well over a decade. Our management was there. They used, the EMI guys used to tease me saying I was the honorary Brit. So I've spent probably collectively about 2 years of my life in London.
All right, cool.
So I understand the place pretty well.
I apologize for the weather. That must have been fun coming from California and having to live here for a few years. Weather-wise.
Yeah, well, you do what you do.
Yeah. Okay, so you've recently done a lot of festival dates around Europe. Watched some of the footage last night. Looked like a lot of fun. Do you prefer festival gigs or maybe indoor, more intimate venues? And do you find that there's a big difference between them?
Yeah, they're two different things. you know, when you're doing festivals, it's a real communal environment. When you're doing your own shows, you're playing strictly to your fan base.
Yeah.
So they're two completely distinctively different things. They both have charm, but they're totally different.
If you could only play one more gig, then which would you prefer? Would you prefer to play a festival, or would you prefer a little intimate one?
You know, it depends, because the audience has a lot to do with it as well, because depending on the feedback that you're getting, you know, we've done bullfight arenas that the walls were literally moving, you know, and then at the same time you go into a smaller venue where the passion from the audience is bleeding over onto the stage. It's infectious.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like I said, they both have their charm.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I've been to see you guys several times over the years, and seen you at festivals, seen you at small gigs. I saw you opening the 30 Years of Thunder tour in London a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. Always packed out, and that must be really gratifying for you after all these years.
Well, you know, hey, any artist that's had been blessed with that sort of a fan base for that long, you know, you don't take that for granted.
Yeah. Okay, we've got a few, problems. I suppose it's the same all over, but it's certainly in the UK at the moment. It seems to be live venues closing down all the time here. What's your general opinion of the live music scene at the moment? Do you still see, were the festivals in Europe well attended, and you still seeing that sort of crowd out there?
The internet has changed everything.
Yeah.
You know, 25 years ago, when the majors were what they were, as much as we would despise them at times, they had this phenomenal ability to be able to take millions of people and move them in the same direction at the same time.
Yeah.
To effectively create a scene. That's missing now. Mm-hmm. And because although the internet gives you a lot more choices, because of those choices, it doesn't create that community environment. You know, it doesn't create that movement, that scene where everybody's going in the same direction at the same time. That is sorely missed. And because of it, you have the peripheral casualties that you're referring to, you know, so
yeah,
that, you know, that thing gives and takes away at the same time. You know, there's not yet been a working model created that's been able to harness the power of it.
Okay.
You know, and that's yet to be, you know, discovered, if it can even happen at all.
Yeah. Well, we TBFM Online, this station, we have a big focus on the up and coming and the emerging bands. More than 80% of our output comes from like emerging bands. We also run a Breaking Bands festival here in the UK. So when we hear the likes of Metallica's co-manager Peter Mensch saying that he can't see where the future festival headliners are coming from, then that really kind of sticks in our craw, if you know what I mean, because we're seeing these bands and we obviously we're trying to push them and trying to get them up there to be the next headliners. What's your sort of view on that? Can you see the next stage of headliners coming in, the likes of yourselves that are around for 20, 30, 40 years maybe?
Well, you know, see previous answer, you know, about internet, because like I said, as much as we at times could despise the majors, they have this ability to really do this thing that I'm talking about. You know, I'll give you an example. If you had a song that they determined was going to be a hit single, they'd call Paris, they'd call Tokyo, they'd call New York and London all on the same day, and they would put that machinery into motion. And I'm here to tell you, to watch that thing unfurl was a thing of beauty. Yeah. If you were on the receiving end of it, there was nothing like it. It was unbelievably remarkable. Okay. That doesn't exist anymore. Also, the ability for young bands to showcase themselves, to develop themselves. You know, somebody asked me here a while back, they said, you know, where all the great new frontmen coming from? I said, this is difficult because we were able to learn our craft by playing a whole lot of smaller places for a long time. Yeah. That circuit doesn't exist the same as it does anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, so can it be done again? Yes, we see that it can, but can it be done with a frequency that it used to? and the jury's still out on that, you know. And if, you know, with what you guys are doing, that's a great thing, you know, but there needs to be more of that. That's the problem with what's happened in America, is that they've not recycled the audiences. When we come to Europe, it's like a time warp. We look at it in the crowd, and it's all 18 and 20-year-olds. It's not like that in America.
All right. Well, as I say, we have some great up-and-coming bands on TBFM. We set ourselves a challenge. If you listen to our station for an hour, then you're going to find a band you never heard of that you like. So hopefully we can, you know, we can keep pushing them out. That's the challenge that we set ourselves anyway. So, okay. So, where do you see yourself and the band in maybe 5 or more, 10 more years? I know as a gig goer, time's not on my side. Certainly, it's getting harder and harder to go to the gigs. So playing them must be even harder. And that, do you have any retirement plans on the horizon, or is it literally just rock till you drop?
I don't think about it. You know, I feel like I did when we first started. You know, so I don't see an expiration date written on the side of me. You know, I mean, I just like I said, I don't really think about that. Okay, that's I think the most important thing is, whether it's us or any other band that's been around for a long time, if you make a record, do you really have something to say?
Yeah.
And can you do it with the quality it needs to be done? And if you can't answer yes to both of those, then maybe you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, or wait until a time comes around where you do feel inspired.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the most important thing, you know, is can you compete with what you did before? Because I would be quite honest with you. Anytime a band that's been around 10 years or longer, anytime that band makes a new record, that record becomes your new opening act.
Yeah.
And I'll explain what I mean by that, because, you know, you make, like in the early days when you start going out and opening for whoever, you know, you go into Cincinnati, or you go into Birmingham, or any place you want to shoot. People have never seen you before.
Yeah.
You know, you have to prove yourself every night. A new album is a lot like that, because if you've got records that are 20 and 30 years old, people have been romancing those songs in their heads for 20 and 30 years. For that new album to compete with the older material, in many ways, has to be even better than original material, just to be able to compete. So, you know, when we look at that, we understand that every time a new record is coming out, it's got to be able to hold its own. You hear the expression, it's harder to stay there than it is to get there. Well, that's a huge part of it. You know, it's like, is that new record going to be able to compete with the idea that people have romanced those old songs in their heads for so long?
Okay, that's great. I've got a couple of listener questions. I asked some of our listeners if they had anything to ask you. So Matt wanted to know, how do you look back now on the Crimson Idol? Do you still hold it in the same regard as you did when you first released it? And he also wanted to know if you were glad that it came out under the W.A.S.P label, or if you thought it should have been a solo project under your own name.
I still have a very fond place, and always will, for that album. As a matter of fact, this new album has a song on it called Miss You. Miss You was one of 3 songs that were written for the Crimson Idol that never made it to the album. As a matter of fact, Miss You was the first song that was written for the Crimson Idol, but didn't make it on the album. And I finally decided to put it on this album because I just felt it was time for people to hear it. You know, when you look at the lyrics of it, you'll clearly see that it's Jonathan talking to his brother.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, again, if I'm still visiting this 23 years later, there's got to be a huge place in my heart for that record because of that reason.
Yeah.
And should it have been done under the W.A.S.P banner as opposed to solo? I've always thought W.A.S.P were an idea.
Yeah.
You know, so whether it was me doing it or whatever, I think the idea of the name is more important than me. So, you know, that's the reason we decided to go with it. And I must admit that originally we were going to not use the W.A.S.P name, and when we told the fans that we were going to do that, they were the ones that came back and said, don't you understand W.A.S.P are an idea?
Okay.
And we really, quite frankly, hadn't even thought of it in those terms before.
Okay.
So that's the reason that the decision was made.
Okay. Okay, that's good. And we've got another question from Dan, who said, is it true that you nearly got a key role in Terminator 2, and would you maybe still be interested in acting if you offered any other roles or anything like that?
It's funny, because in the beginning I got offered a lot of axe murderer parts.
I can't imagine why that would be.
Really? Can you imagine that? And I kept telling my agent, I don't want to be an axe murderer. I want to do something else.
Right.
So when the Terminator thing came along, it was very, very interesting. But I had just started making the Crimson Idol, and so what are you going to do? And I've often thought, what would have happened if I would have went and done that? Well, the Idol would have never been made, and it would have probably, in all reality, shortened my career.
Yeah.
So I think, in all honesty, the right decision was made.
Okay. And any other offers or anything, any sort of mad desire to go acting or anything?
You scratch that itch, I think, when you're younger, and I think you start to understand, I'm doing what it is that I do because that's what I was most passionate about.
Okay.
And, you're happy to stay where you are.
Okay, that's great. Okay, well, that's all I've got for you. So, Blackie, it's been an absolute honour to talk to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time for us here at TBFM. So, good luck with the album.
Well, thanks for taking the time and doing this for me. I sure appreciate it.
No, it's great. It's been really good talking to you. I'll be coming and seeing you when you're over in the UK, my friend, and I hope it all goes well.
Look after yourself.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye now.